halfway through our 28 days of transformation that we have been talking about all month. And so the first week we spent clearing. You all got handouts. They're in your bulletin. You don't have to look. And we will have them, by the way, on the website. Not on the website. We'll have them, well, maybe on the website too, Dennis. We'll have them in our newsletter that comes out every week, all 3 weeks, with links, so that you'll be able to click it open and print it up if you want, if you weren't here. But they're practices that we did. So the first week we spent clearing away the debris that keeps us separate from who we really are. Clutter of things, of resentments, of hurts, of anger, anything that we keep down that is creating a block to our good, the flow of life, which is always expressing in and through and as us at all times. This was external and internal work. So I know that a lot of people have been doing this and have had wonderful beginnings of transformation take place. But we know this is not just 1 week's work. This is continuous. And however, we entered into it in a very focused way. If you were with us all 3 talks, in week 1, and with the intention of keeping it clear. And then we moved into clearing enough that we could hear that call, which we spoke about last week, that calling, realizing that we are called for something much bigger than we can ever imagine. And not big necessarily in the way the world sees it or the way our egos see it, but the way that it gives meaning to our lives, meaning to us, that pull for us to do, to come alive, if you will, to express more of our God self. That call could be just a simple act of kindness which can change a person's life forever. It can be so many different things. So when we talk about calling, as we did last week, the call, we just open up to however it is showing up in our life and don't question it. Go to the heart. That's where the calling takes place. It doesn't take place, by the way, in our minds. It takes place in our hearts. We feel the pull. We see a beautiful example of this in the master teacher Jesus, who, when he was in the temple, astounding those who had been teaching for many years, because here he was, this 12-year-old, and when his parents came looking for him, they thought they lost him for a while. He was in the temple at 12 just preaching away. They came looking for him and said something to the effect of, "There you are. What are you doing here, and why are you not with us?" And that's when Jesus said, "Know ye not that I am about my Father's business?" Know ye, I am about my Father's business. That divine essence within us that we call our Father, our Mother, whatever you want. I call it it, but you can call it anything. He was about doing that calling which he was incarnated to do, to preach the word of new thought, to preach these spiritual truths, which, by the way, don't change. They've been around forever, and they are going nowhere, because the spiritual truths that we believe in here at Joyful Gathering flow through every religion. When you take it to its purest, without the dogma on top of it, it is this essence of love, this calling for all of us to step out of our littleness into expressing our God self into the world. So Jesus was as in his spiritual adolescence. And we have this spiritual adolescent shift that begins when we become aware. We start to become new at this, like, wow, I really have choice in life? I can really choose on how I'm going to respond to this? It becomes this powerful thing. And we are called to do something different than the things we may have thought. I know, I have many times, every time I think I got it right, I'm going to be doing this, a whole nother thing takes place and pulls me out into a whole different area. I never knew it, never planned it, but something in me knew it. Something in you knows it. There is a power in you that is divine, that is eternal, that is always pulling you to do something bigger and greater than this mind could ever conceive of. Our work last Sunday and all of the past week was to deepen into the understanding of what is currently calling us and creatively aligning with love's learning. That was the acronym CALL. And I heard from a few people in the congregation, so I wrote down 2 of the comments that I heard, and one said, I have been faithfully listening for the call this week. And funny, I can tell you, the call has been dialing my number for some time now. I just wasn't home. Yeah? And someone else said, since the beginning of the daily affirmations and moments of meditation, I feel peaceful, grounded, more at ease, more confident. So that's what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. And so today we're going to talk about the place we begin, sometimes arrive at, when transformation begins to happen to us. There's a place where we get to. We don't get to, we kind of experience it, and it continues. It continues, but as we experience the newness of a transformed life, we may not be completely comfortable in our own skin. It might feel a little different, sometimes a whole lot different. And we may not quite know how to navigate through this life in a new way. That's why today's talk is called Navigating Transformation. As I was preparing this lesson, I wanted to give us a perspective from which we can understand this time of transition. And I wanted to provide a framework for understanding that seeming gap, it seems like a gap sometimes, from living who we thought we were, to stepping into living who we really are, which is living authentically as our true selves. And we know when we're in it, we can feel it. And to learn who we are, to really learn who we are without fear, or without, how about this, her story, or, it's really history, right? History or her story, without that stuff, without the way that, we all have a story, don't we? Mm-hmm. We all have a story, and sometimes it serves us to let go of the story, or bits of it at a time, and move into a new story. Mm-hmm. And that's what transformation is all about. We're expressions of God. And sometimes we just don't express our God self quite as freely as might serve us. So I'm not a big sports fan. In fact, I'm not one at all, but many of you here are. But I have something to put things in perspective here, and it's an analogy for navigating transformation. So this is about a sports team in Arizona, and it's about a lot of the players. And I've been reading a little about Lamar Odom and what he's going through, but it started when he was transferred from one team to another. So this happened 8 years or 9 years ago with Steve Nash. Anybody know who he is?
Yeah, basketball player.
Thank you. He was a basketball player. I didn't know if it was football or basketball. For the Phoenix Suns. And then in a moment, he was traded to yet another team. And suddenly, he was no longer a Suns. Rather, he was a Laker. So for 8 years before, he had worn, for 8 years, he had worn the purple and orange uniform, and he knew that. He knew that that's who he was. He knew all the plays. He knew the players and their families. He knew the playbook. He knew the back way of Phoenix. He knew all the back roads. He knew how to get into the arena. He had keys to some of the secret rooms in the arena. He knows all the best restaurants in town. He owns a home there. He was a Phoenix Sun, tried and true, and suddenly a transformation has taken place. And he's now a Los Angeles Laker. So the image the image that he had was of this other team. So now he's in California, and there's a whole new image. And what does it take to go from then this thinking of I am a Phoenix Sun to I am a Laker? What must be done within him? As you and I think about this, it has some reference to do with what it means to us for when we recognize a significant, or not, but significant transformation is taking place in our lives. How do we show up when that transformation is not who I thought I was? Here you go. I was married for 40 years. I was in a relationship for 42 years. So what do I know? I know to be a married person. And that's what I know as part of who I am. Then one day, in fact, 6 hours, one day I'm married, 6 hours later I'm single. That's the transformation, I would think. And it's how do I navigate? How do I navigate as a single person? Who knew the things I'm finding out, the things I am learning, and doing it consciously, not always comfortably, but consciously. Who am I really as I'm navigating life? Finding out. How do I do relationships? Finding that one out. How do I live alone? I've never lived alone before. This is a transformation. It's a time to practice what I preach. And so many of us go through these kinds, or different kinds, of transformation where one day we're one thing and the next day we're something totally different. So how do we navigate that transformation? And so you might say, I was playing a role separate from God. I was playing a role that there was something wrong with me. Some different circumstances in our lives. I was playing the role that I don't have what it takes. I was playing the role that I need to get my love or security out there. And how many of us do that? I was playing the role of being small. I was playing the role of being separate from God. And we all know that the one thing that truly needs, the only thing that needs to be healed in our lives is the belief that we truly are separate from this energy. And it sure does look like it in our everyday life and on this planet. It looks like separation. But in true reality, when we leave these physical forms, are we not part of something greater? Can we believe that now as we're living these human lives, that we're part of something so much greater than ourselves? Because that's the truth. That's what these teachings are instilling in all of us. And then we have a realization when we're going through this stuff, that a transformation takes place. And we begin to realize that we are not who we thought we were. Wow. I have no idea, by the way, of who I really am. I'm finding out now. I forgot. In 42 years, I forgot. So I'm learning now. And I think that applies to all of us when we make a major shift in our lives. To do it consciously, that's where the transformation into something that could serve us, that looks like it could be darkness, but it could be the greatest light that we've ever experienced in our lives. We're moving into a new way of being, a new way of showing up on this planet. And it takes a while to catch up to that idea. You don't know all the back roads here. You haven't read the playbook yet. Where's the playbook for life? I want to know. That would be a good book. The play life book. I mean, really, where is it? You can read all the books you want. You're not going to find it in there. Because it's in here. It's in here. This is where the playbook for life is. But you got to do some work to get it open. We're not the role. We're not the role that we thought that we were here to be. Maybe it's something, and usually when we let go, and as Carol said, let God, that's when the greatness shows through. That's when the callings become clearer. And it doesn't have to be easy. It usually isn't. But transformation, change of any kind, can serve us to such a high degree, such a high degree. And you know, when we really believe that the universe supports us in everything we think, say, and do, in our every circumstance, in every situation in our lives, there comes a freedom with that. But it's deepening into that faith of really believing that this universe is my source and supply, this universal substance that we call divine, that we call God, that we call whatever we want to call it. We have someone in foundation class that calls it the something. So when this something moves through us, wow, wow. But if you're like Steve Nash, or if you are Steve, well, you're not Steve Nash, but if you're like Steve Nash, you don't come close. You don't come out on game day in LA and sit on the bench and say, I really don't feel like being a Laker today. I still feel like a Sun. I can't really play today. I think I'll just sit here on the bench. I'm not playing today. There is no therapist on the bench who is going to help Steve Nash feel like a Laker. He just has to be one. He has to suit up and show up. And he has to put on the uniform. There is something very empowering about the concept. So I want to say it again, to suit up and show up. Wow, just suit up and show up in life. You don't have to wait for your feelings to catch up, for you to do something that you were meant to do here on this plane, on this earth. You can assume, you can just make that assumption that you can. You can put on the gear. It really isn't any different gear. I had this jacket when I was married for 42 years. It's no different looking gear than the gear you have on right now. It's stepping into a different image, a different way that we show up in the world. You put it on and you step into it, knowing the whole time that you're supported by this power that we have faith in, because we can't see it, but we can't see emotions either. You don't wait until you feel like it. You get a new perspective about it. You don't just sit on the sidelines. No, you get up. You get up and you put one foot in front of the other and you walk through life and know that you are supported. That is the greatest gift you can give to yourself when you are going through transformation. And you're going to go through it, whether change is going to happen, whether you like it or not. The change is going to happen. The transformation into something even greater than you ever could realize, that's the gift. And that takes awareness. And it really is all about putting things into perspective. So to illustrate, a young woman went off to college. And after being there for a couple of semesters, she wrote this letter to her parents. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm sorry I haven't written lately, but all my things were destroyed in the dorm fire. My eyes are almost completely healed now, and the doctors assure me that my lungs aren't permanently damaged from the smoke. While the dorm is being rebuilt, I have moved in with my boyfriend. I think you met Roy when you were down for Parents' Weekend. He's the one with the green hair and the safety pin through his nose. And I know how much you always wanted grandchildren. So you'll be happy to know I'm expecting a baby by the end of summer. Then the letter goes on. You'll also be happy to know that there was no fire in the dorm. My eyes are not damaged and my lungs are fine. I'm not living with Roy. In fact, he's not even my boyfriend. And I'm definitely not pregnant. I did, however, receive a D in English and an F in Spanish. And I wanted to be sure that you placed this information in the correct perspective. It's all about perspective, is it not? What does it mean? What does it mean to put things in the proper perspective? Oh, in the New Testament, we find Paul writing about what proper perspective is. He calls it the mind of Christ. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 5, let the mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. In the Science of Mind, page 273, from Ernest Holmes, St. Paul said, we have the mind of Christ, which means that each one of us has immediate access to the intelligence of the universe. Proper perspective is to put on this mind, and to realize that therefore we can gain access to this infinite intelligence which is always available to us, and the creativity and the love of the universe is flowing through us all the time. We're energy, the universe is energy. It's all flowing and moving at the same time. And what happens when we do this, and here's a tangible example. On the Sea of Galilee, the waves are boisterous. The disciples terrified, yet Jesus is asleep at the bottom of the boat. They woke him up. I don't know about you in the morning, but it's not my best time to be alert. But he gets up and he walks to the end of the boat and simply says, peace be still, and everything calms down. They say, who is this man that even as he first wakes up, the winds and the waves obey his command? The Christ mind. You heard about it in Carol's reading. The Christ mind, the perspective we have on life, is a way of orienting yourself so that when your daughter sends you a letter with the D and the F in it, without hearing other things, we realize it's just a circumstance. It's just holding everything in context, true context. That's part of our lesson in life, to hold things into the proper perception and perspective. The mind of Christ in religious science, we talk about it all the time, there's a whole chapter on it in the Science of Mind textbook, is right thinking. That's what it means. It means to have that thinking that is aligned with this divine intelligence, and we know when we are using our right mind for right thinking when things feel right. Remember, I said they don't have to feel good, that they feel right. Like, this is the thing, it's intuition, this is the thing to do. This is what I will follow. And you say to those winds and those waves, be still. You put on the mantle. You put on the mantle. You put on the uniform, because it's been given to you by the one who has given you life. How do you know that you have been given life? Are you breathing? If you're breathing, you've been given life. And you have been given the Holy Spirit of life. The Holy Spirit of life. And so you're putting on the mind of Christ when you're in that alignment of right thinking, of following that intuitive guide, of doing that which truly speaks to you, and having that faith that you are supported. So what does it take to put on the mind of Christ? What did it take for Steve Nash to say, I'm not a Suns, I'm a Laker? What does it take to show up as a Laker? What did it take from being in a relationship of 42 years to one day being single? To renew the mind again and again and again. To turn within, because these outside circumstances would tell you otherwise. And they're transitory. They're going to pass. But by turning in and really aligning with spiritual truth while you're going through your transformation, that's where the gift is. That's where the gift is. That's where the transformation truly takes place. And once again, Paul comes to the rescue with some wonderful counsel. At Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are good, report. If there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. He's saying, align yourself with your Christ mind. Remember, Christ means anointed one. That's the meaning of the word. So you're all anointed. Each and every person that is born into this incarnation is an anointed son or daughter of the Most High. We put on the mind of Christ by thinking that which is true and noble and good. Right thinking. And we can choose, as we can see in the terrorists that are all over this planet, and I'm not saying there aren't any in this country that might be in government, but I'm not going to go there. But we can know if they have their Christ mind on or not by what takes place. Because whatever thing is good, is virtuous, is of value, that's the thing that we resonate with when we're aware and we talk about spiritual things like our Christ mind, our right thinking. It feels right. It feels correct. We practice putting on the mind, and this, friends, is how we navigate transformation. We don't let the circumstances pull us down. We suit up and we show up. We suit up, things are going to happen. We suit up, we show up, we put one foot in front of the other, and we move forward. What's the alternative? Last week, you were to spend some time inviting forth the call. That's what the handout was on last week. Every day there's a spiritual practice to do. And now, in the peace and beauty and sanctity of this room, I invite you to take one of those ideas, and if you weren't here, think of something that is a call to you, and put it on. So, you can close your eyes if you want, this is short, but you're going to put on the uniform of that call by visualizing yourself being the person that is living the call. Example could be, see yourself being a closer friend to, see yourself bringing light everywhere you go. Great calling. See yourself having learned a new skill. See yourself in a healed relationship. And see it, feel it, and live it. Make it real. Make it very real to you. This is how you navigate the gap. You put the call on, you put the helmet on, you put the mind of Christ on, whatever you want to call it. The calling, the intention, the desire that you have, and you put it on as if it already exists. And you live from that place of feeling the energy and vibration of what it is that you have been called to do in this moment. And in that process, there is one other thing to do, and that is simply to trust and stand in the divine flow of life in, through, and as each one of us, and knowing that we are supported in whatever it is that we can conceive and then achieve of. Whatever we can conceive of. To be the anchor in your foundation of your life, to live that true integrity with what it is that your heart is calling you to do. Just stand in that and knowing that the universe truly, truly is always supporting us. That's part of navigating through transformation. And so it is.